Buying real estate as an income-producing investment can be intimidating, but it can be done if you walk, not run, up some very important steps. In this video, I'm going to take you up those steps on your way to finding the right property. Welcome back to the Crazy About Condos channel. I'm Kris, and on this channel, we talk all about condominium living in Sarasota, Florida. And speaking of condominiums, they make great rental real estate investments. But so do other property types, like single-family homes, multifamily homes, and even mobile homes. Any of these property types can be used as an annual rental, usually unfurnished, or as a vacation rental, where they're usually turnkey furnished. In the Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice market where I live and work, there may be restrictions on rentals. Some governmental restrictions and some are community-specific restrictions. And I'll talk about those later on in the video. The first step in buying rental real estate is the same step as buying any kind of real estate, and that is start with the money. If you have cash to pay for your purchase, great. But don't put all your money down at the closing table. For instance, if you get a good deal on a property but it needs a few renovations, you're going to need money to fund those renovations, and you may not be able to rent the property while you're doing those renovations, so you won't have any income to offset your expenses. If you are able to rent the property right away, properties always need maintenance and they need repairs, especially when tenants are present. So you'll need money left over after your closing for those things. If you're someone who's going to need to borrow mortgage money to buy the rental property, totally possible, but be prepared for a deeper down payment than you would on a primary residence. You're looking at probably about 25 to 30% down payment required by a lender for an investment property purchase. In addition, the interest rate on investment property mortgages is higher than a primary residence mortgage, probably as much as a half a point higher. And if your investment property is a condominium or a manufactured home, even higher. Step 2 is to find out what the comparable rents are in your market. Rents will vary greatly from neighborhood to neighborhood, from property type to property type, and depending on what amenities a property has or doesn't have, such as a pool, proximity to a golf course, proximity to the Gulf of Mexico, and things like that. When you are comparing rents, be sure you're comparing apples to apples. If you're planning on doing an unfurnished annual rental, don't compare it to rents for short-term furnished vacation rentals, which are going to be much higher, especially during those months when it's warm here in Florida and it's cold in other parts of the world. Step 3 is verify, verify, verify. Be sure to verify all the expenses associated with a property. And be sure to review the lease if there is one in place, because oftentimes some expenses are hidden in that lease where the tenant is either paying for it or providing some maintenance in exchange for lower rent. And speaking of expenses, if you plan on renting your property for 6 months or less here in Florida, you're going to pay what we lovingly call the tourist tax. For rentals that are 6 months or less, the state of Florida sticks their hand out for 7% of that rent money. And then Sarasota County tax on an additional 6%, and Manatee County tax on an additional 5%. And if you decide to do a super short rental, like a daily rental, you may be subject to a bed tax. And it's very important to have a good understanding of these taxes before you buy, so you can calculate your cash flow properly. Step 4 in buying rental real estate is location, location, location. Now, we've all heard that old real estate adage that means that the value of a property is presumably higher if it's located within a presumably superior neighborhood. And that applies to rental real estate as well. But with rental real estate, location goes even further. In my market, in the Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice market, our local governments have placed additional rental restrictions on people who want to rent their properties. For instance, in Sarasota County, for the entire county, there is a minimum 30-day rental restriction. You cannot rent your property for less than 30 days in Sarasota County unless the property is located in the city of Sarasota, in which case the minimum is 1 week, or unless the property is located on parts of one of our barrier islands, Siesta Key, Lido Key, those type of places. Then you may be able to do daily rentals there. But it's really important to know. For Manatee County, for the entire county, there's no minimum rental period restriction, unless you're in the city of Bradenton, or you're on Holmes Beach, or Anna Maria Island, or Bradenton Beach. And those governments, those local governments have their own restrictions. And you really need to be aware of what those restrictions are before you buy. And if you're thinking of buying a property in an association, a condo association, a homeowners association, a mobile home park, those mini governments pose their own additional rental restrictions. For instance, in some of those communities, you have to own the property for a year or 2 years before you can even think about renting it. In some of those communities, they impose restrictions on the maximum number of units that can be rented in the entire community. They want to keep it below a certain percentage. And if you buy a property and they've already maxed out that percentage, you're not going to be able to rent it. Some of those communities have a 3-month minimum, a 6-month minimum. They'll tell you you can only rent once a year or 3 times a year. Those are really important things to know before you buy the property. The last step I'm going to talk about in this video is step 5. And that's for you to get real familiar with Chapter 83 of the Florida statutes, which is the Florida Landlord-Tenant Act. And if you plan on doing rentals that are less than 30 days, you should also be familiar with Chapter 509, which has to do with short-term lodging. You don't have to have a law degree to understand these statutes, but I recommend that you consult an attorney if you have any questions about them. The 5 steps I have described in this video should be completed before you even make an offer on a property, along with the other steps you would normally go through, such as getting a home inspection, having a title search performed, reviewing the association documents, things like that. A good realtor, me, can help you sort out all the details. Please watch my video, What Do Condo Fees Cover?, to find out just exactly what expenses might already be included in the association dues for that condo you're thinking of investing in.